Drinking ages weren't uniform across the country. Some states still allowed 18 or 19-year-olds to order a beer. In the early 80s, bars near state borders became teenage destinations. Cars packed with kids chasing a legal drink. Today it sounds reckless, but back then it was seen as normal, just another local quirk of geography and law. Boys will be boys was the excuse for office talk that would spark HR investigations now. Off-color jokes, pin-up calendars in break rooms, and casual remarks passed without much pushback. It was the workplace culture brushed off as harmless fun. Today, it would mean complaints, meetings, and firings. But in the 80s, it was background noise. Some states allowed open containers in cars, and people barely blinked. A beer in the cup holder while cruising on a back road wasn't scandalous. It was common. Highway patrol might issue a warning, but no one thought of it as shocking. Looking back, the risks seem obvious, but at the time, it was everyday life. 4th of July meant neighborhood fireworks, every driveway a launch pad. Families bought Roman candles, bottle rockets, and firecrackers from roadside stands. No permit in sight. The pops and bangs carried late into the night. Burns and close calls happened, but it was part of the holiday. Today, most towns ban it outright, but back then it was expected. Airport security was little more than a glance. Shoes stayed on, belts stayed buckled, and nobody checked your ID for domestic flights. Families walked right to the gate, hugging relatives as they boarded. Metal detectors were there, but the process was quick and relaxed. It's almost unthinkable now, but flying back then felt casual and welcoming. The idea of a designated driver hadn't fully caught on. After a night out, someone would shrug, say, "I'm fine," and drive. Friends piled in, trusting instincts instead of breathalyzers. It wasn't seen as shocking, just the way things were. The tragedies added up, but culturally it was brushed off until stricter laws forced change. In the 1980s, neighbors acted like co-parents. A kid caught misbehaving down the block might get scolded by Mrs. Johnson, who'd then promised to tell your mother. Parents backed each other up, no questions asked. Children learned quickly that the entire street was watching. It built community, though today many would call it overstepping. Smoking sections were carved out of restaurants, airports, even hospital lobbies. Sometimes just a painted line on the floor as if smoke respected boundaries. Non-smokers sat nearby, breathing the same haze, and nobody questioned it. Lighting up at a desk or table was routine, socially accepted everywhere. It wasn't strange then. It was simply part of life. Neighborhood mosquito trucks rolled slowly through summer evenings, fogging chemicals into the air. Kids on bikes actually pedaled into the mist, laughing as clouds drifted across lawns. Parents barely raised an eyebrow. It looked like harmless smoke, not poison. Today, the thought of children playing in pesticide spray sounds insane. But back then, it was just another summer memory. Bowling alleys were full of cigarette smoke. Jukeboxes rattled windows, and kids played Pac-Man near the snack bar. Families bowled side by side with leagues. Neon beer signs glowed, and laughter carried through the haze. Today, smoke-free rules and cleaner air changed the vibe. But back then, alleys were smoky, loud, and part of weekly fun. In the 1980s, latchkey kids were a fixture of suburban life. Parents both worked, so kids carried house keys on shoelaces or chains and let themselves in after school. They'd heat up a microwave dinner, watch cartoons, and stay alone for hours. Nobody thought it unusual. It was just how millions of middle-class families made life work. Tanning beds and suntan accelerator oils were all the rage. People roasted in strip mall salons or slathered baby oil on lawns chasing a deep bronze glow. Sunburns weren't warnings, they were badges of summer. Peeling skin and aloe vera were part of this cycle. Today, doctors cringe at the thought, but back then it was beauty and health rolled together. Halloween in the 1980s stretched for miles. Kids roamed neighborhoods after dark, pillowcases filling with candy, and strangers handed out popcorn balls or homemade fudge without suspicion. No parents with flashlights trailing behind. No trunk or treat alternatives. It was freedom wrapped in costumes, the kind of night that felt endless and safe. Though today, it would raise eyebrows. Company holiday parties in the 80s were wild affairs. Open bars flowed freely, employees drank hard, and rides home weren't planned. Carpools or simply driving after a few was standard. HR wasn't hovering, and lawsuits weren't in the back of everyone's mind. It was cheer, loosened ties, and plenty of stories. Today, the liability alone makes it unthinkable. Pilots used to invite kids into the cockpit mid-flight. Wide-eyed children climbed into the front, touching buttons and snapping Polaroids with smiling captains. Flight attendants encouraged it. Parents cheered, and nobody saw danger in it. For a child, it was a magical glimpse of the skies. Today, cockpit doors are locked tight from start to finish. Getting lost meant stopping at a gas station. Attendants leaned on counters, wiping hands with rags, giving directions with landmarks instead of street names. Turn left at the Red Barn, go past the diner. Nobody had GPS, and nobody panicked if they wandered a few miles out of the way. It was simply how travel worked. Teachers in the 1980s often smoked in faculty lounges. The haze drifted down hallways, clinging to sweaters and notebooks. It was just part of school life, as normal as chalk dust and squeak of floors. Students knew when teachers had been on break, not from the clock, but from the cloud of cigarette smell that followed them back. Arcades were unsupervised hangouts. Rows of machines glowing through haze, smoke filled the air. Older teens lingered, and kids lined up with pockets of quarters. Parents dropped children off, trusting they'd stay safe. No one checked your ID or worried much about who else was inside. It was the social hub of youth. Today, the idea sounds reckless, but it worked then.